The trial of Lily Well, when justice knows no limits. The courtroom was packed, the dim white light reflecting off the long wooden benches where spectators sat shoulder to shoulder, murmuring among themselves. At the center of it all stood Lily Well, a 17-year-old black girl, facing the judge's bench with a gaze both calm and razor-sharp. Her long black hair was neatly tied back, and her sneakers made a faint squeaking sound as she shifted slightly on the cold stone floor. She did not look like someone afraid of the verdict that could change her life forever. Above her, Judge York leaned back in his chair, his steely gray-blue eyes peering down at her through round glasses, a look of barely concealed disdain on his face. A large man with graying hair, his black robe draped loosely around him as if trying to mask the discontent etched across his stern expression. "Miss Well?" he drawled, stretching out her last name as if it left an unpleasant taste in his mouth. "Do you truly understand the severity of the charges against you?" The room fell silent. Everyone waited for her response. But Lily didn't blink, nor did she waver. "Yes, Your Honor, I understand completely." York narrowed his eyes, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, as though he was indulging a child who had no idea of her place. "Are you sure? Because this isn't a classroom test, young lady. This is a real trial." A few chuckles rippled through the room, including from the prosecution's table. Lily flicked her eyes toward them briefly, her face betraying nothing but unwavering composure. She was used to these looks, these condescending whispers implying she didn't belong here. But she was here, and soon they would all realize why. Judge York continued, his tone heavy with condescension. "I don't know who let a girl represent herself in a case this serious, but I can assure you it was a foolish decision." Lily took a slow breath. She could feel the skepticism radiating from every corner of the room. They expected her to stumble, to falter, perhaps even break down and plead for mercy. But they weren't going to get that from her. She lifted her chin, her gaze unyielding. "I'm not here to play games, Your Honor," she stated firmly, "and I don't need anyone making decisions for me." A murmur spread through the courtroom. The lead prosecutor, a tall, lean man with slicked back black hair, rose from his seat, his expression filled with annoyance. "Your Honor, this is a waste of time. The evidence against the defendant is overwhelmingly clear." Without missing a beat, Lily turned toward him. "Objection!" The word sliced through the air like a sharp blade. The courtroom went dead silent. The prosecutor froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Excuse me?" he stammered. "Objection," Lily repeated, her voice steady and firm. "You're making a presumption without presenting admissible evidence. That is speculation and inadmissible in a fair trial." A ripple of murmurs coursed through the audience. No one had expected this. Judge York raised a brow, clearly displeased at being challenged. "Miss Well, do you even understand what you're doing?" Lily smiled slightly. "Yes, Your Honor, and I think you're beginning to understand that too." York leaned back, eyes narrowing, as though reassessing the situation. The prosecutor still stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, searching for a counter-argument, but finding none. Lily turned to face the jury, meeting each of their gazes one by one. "I stand here today not to beg for sympathy. I stand here to prove that justice isn't a game where the strongest player wins. I have studied the law, prepared for this moment, and I understand better than anyone that the law is a tool meant to protect everyone, even a 17-year-old girl like me." The energy in the room shifted. Some people began looking at her differently, not as a naive teenager, but as someone who was fully capable. The prosecutor finally found his voice, opening his mouth to retort, but before he could, Lily raised her hand, cutting him off. You're about to argue that I lack the qualifications to do this, aren't you? She asked, her tone smooth yet challenging. Well, I have news for you. I passed the California bar exam last year. I am a lawyer. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, stunned whispers, disbelieving glances. Some shook their heads as if refusing to believe it. The prosecutor took a step back. Judge York's frown deepened, suspicion flashing in his eyes. What? He barked. Lily remained unfazed. I passed the bar exam, she repeated, and I will defend myself. Chaos broke loose in the courtroom as voices clashed in whispers and exclamations. But Lily stood firm, unwavering. She was ready for this battle. And for the first time, Judge York seemed to realize that he had greatly underestimated his opponent. Lily Well, the girl who rewrote the law. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, stares, and the occasional scoffing laughter from the gallery. In the midst of this rigid, imposing atmosphere, Lily Wells stood tall, her expression unwavering, her composure unshaken. She knew exactly what they were thinking. There was no way she could win. A teenage black girl standing before an experienced judge and a sharp-witted prosecutor? To them, this was a farce. But Lily was not a joke. Judge York leaned back in his chair, his long black robe draping over his broad frame, voice dripping with condescension as he looked down at her. Miss Well, I assume you fully understand the charges against you? Lily did not blink. Yes, Your Honor, I do. York chuckled dryly, shaking his head as if he were speaking to a naive child. Are you certain? Because this isn't a philosophy class. This is a real courtroom. A few chuckles rippled through the prosecution and the audience. But Lily paid no mind. She wasn't here to entertain them. She was here to win. Prosecutor Hensley rose to his feet, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit. He was the kind of man who always believed he was the smartest in the room, and today he saw no reason for that to change. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case, Hensley declared smugly. The defendant was found at the crime scene with incriminating documents in her possession. There is no room for dispute. Lily tilted her head slightly. Objection. The room fell silent. Hensley frowned. What did you just say? Lily inhaled slowly, locking eyes with him. I said, objection. You are making a speculative argument without presenting verifiable evidence. A murmur spread through the courtroom. Hensley blinked, visibly thrown off. Judge York tapped his fingers on the bench, unimpressed. Miss Well, what exactly do you think you're doing? Lily turned to face him, voice steady. I am exercising my legal right to challenge an unfounded statement. York narrowed his eyes. He did not like this confidence. I'm overruling your objection. Lily's lips curled into the faintest smile. Then let the record show that the court has denied a legitimate objection from the defense despite its validity. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. A few spectators exchanged curious glances. This wasn't just a defendant on trial anymore. She was controlling the room. Hensley quickly regained his composure, scoffing. Then tell us, Miss Well, do you have any evidence that proves your innocence? Lily didn't rush her response. She stepped forward and placed a folder on the judge's desk. This is the forensic analysis of Exhibit B, she stated. If you review it closely, you'll find that the video evidence the prosecution is using lacks a verified timestamp and an established chain of custody. York picked up the folder, skimming through it. His expression shifted ever so slightly. Your Honor, Lily continued, unwavering, the prosecution is relying on inadmissible evidence to convict me. As per legal precedent, any evidence without a clear chain of custody cannot be used in trial. York turned to Hensley, his frown deepening. Mr. Hensley, is this true? Hensley frantically flipped through his notes, searching for a loophole in her argument, but he found none, because she was right. He stammered. Lily folded her arms, her gaze sharp as steel. You see, Your Honor, I am not just a defendant. I am an attorney. The courtroom erupted, gasps, whispers of disbelief, shaking heads. Hensley stood frozen. York's mouth parted slightly in shock. What did you just say? York growled. Lily shrugged. I passed the California bar exam last year. I am a licensed attorney. The courtroom practically exploded. Reporters scrambled to take notes. Attendees whispered in astonishment. York leaned back, studying her with a completely different expression. So, you're not just some ignorant child? Lily smirked. No, Your Honor, I never was. The entire room had shifted. Justice had a new face, and it was Lily Well. The courtroom stood still the moment Lily Well redefined justice. The courtroom was silent. Every gaze was locked on Lily Well, who stood tall in the center, poised but razor-sharp, facing Judge York, a man accustomed to having absolute control over his court. But today, that power no longer belonged to him. Judge York cleared his throat, his fingers tapping lightly on the solid wooden bench, his eyes filled with skepticism. Miss Well, I don't think you fully grasp the gravity of your situation. Lily shrugged lightly. On the contrary, Your Honor, I understand it better than anyone in this room. A murmur spread across the courtroom. No one had expected a young black teenager to stand there, unfazed, in the face of such pressure. Prosecutor Hensley folded his arms, his smirk laced with condescension. So you think you can defend yourself? Lily met his gaze without hesitation. It's not a matter of thinking. I know I can. Hensley chuckled, shaking his head as if he had just heard the most absurd claim of the day. Your Honor, I don't believe we should waste any more time. The defendant might be an honor student, but that doesn't mean she can argue like a real lawyer. Lily didn't flinch. Sir, she said, her voice clear and unwavering, you're right. An honor student cannot do that, but I'm not just an honor student. The air in the courtroom shifted. Whispers broke out as spectators exchanged puzzled glances, wondering what she meant. Lily stepped toward the defense table, retrieved a thick file, and placed it firmly before Judge York. These are my legal credentials, officially certifying that I have passed the California bar exam. I am a licensed attorney. A single, heavy second of silence hung in the room. Hensley stood motionless, his mouth slightly open, as if someone had just struck him across the face. Judge York narrowed his eyes, flipping through the file hastily. The skepticism on his face gradually melted into something else, something bordering on disbelief. Are you joking? York's voice was low, tense. Lily folded her arms. I don't joke, Your Honor. The real issue here is that everyone in this room assumed I was just a naive teenager with no understanding of the law. But they forgot one crucial fact. Law is not about age. It's about knowledge. This silence was even heavier than the last. Some in the gallery leaned forward, eyes wide, as if they were witnessing history being rewritten before them. York exhaled, flipping to the final page of the document before setting it down, his fingers laced together in thought. You really did just turn the tables. Lily smirked slightly. I didn't turn the tables, Your Honor. I simply did what was right. The courtroom fell silent. How Lily Well redefined justice. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension, every eye fixed on Lily Well, the young girl standing tall before the defense table. No one had expected a teenager to handle the overwhelming pressure of a trial like this, but she wasn't just handling it, she was controlling it. Judge York leaned forward in his chair, his gaze scanning Lily with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "Miss Well, do you fully comprehend the gravity of your situation?" Lily didn't blink. "Your Honor, I understand it better than anyone in this room." A heavy silence settled over the court. Seasoned attorneys, experienced prosecutors, all watching her, waiting, searching for a crack in her confidence. But Lily wasn't about to give them one. Prosecutor Hensley stood up, resting a hand on the table, his expression smug. "Miss Well, I admire your confidence, but this isn't a debate club. You are facing serious charges." Lily nodded slowly. "And I have the right to defend myself, don't I?" Hensley smirked. "Of course, but let's be honest, no one really thinks you can win." A few quiet chuckles rippled through the audience. Lily didn't react. Instead, she reached for a thick file, opened it, and placed it in front of Judge York. "Your Honor, I present my legal analysis of the evidence submitted by the prosecution." York adjusted his glasses, flipping through the pages. His eyes narrowed slightly as he processed what he was reading. Lily continued, her voice steady, deliberate. "Exhibit B, the surveillance footage submitted by the prosecution shows clear signs of tampering. There is no proper chain of custody, which means it cannot be considered valid evidence." York set the file down and turned to Hensley. "Mr. Hensley, is she correct?" Hensley hesitated. "Your Honor, the video still shows a timestamp discrepancy and an unverifiable chain of custody." Lily interjected sharply, "Meaning there is no way to confirm the footage hasn't been altered." The courtroom collectively held its breath. Hensley opened his mouth, then closed it, as if searching for an argument that simply wasn't there. Lily took another step forward. Furthermore, Exhibit D, the so-called confession, was signed without legal representation present. Under federal law, that makes it inadmissible in court. Judge York tapped his fingers against the bench, his gaze sharp as he turned back to the prosecution. "Miss Well, are you telling me this entire case is built on inadmissible evidence?" Lily didn't hesitate. "That is correct, Your Honor." The silence was deafening. York scanned the courtroom, then exhaled heavily. "Then I have no choice but to dismiss this case." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, the sounds of disbelief filling the air. But Lily remained still, unwavering. She had won, and in doing so, she had proven that justice isn't just for those with power, experience, or wealth. It's for anyone who understands the law and knows how to use it. The courtroom stood still, how Lily Well redefined justice. The courtroom was packed, every eye fixed on Lily Well, the young girl standing unwavering in the heart of a high-stakes legal battle. No one had expected this. A teenager representing herself in court, facing off against seasoned prosecutors. But Lily wasn't here just to defend herself. She was here to win. Judge York clasped his hands together, his cold gaze scrutinizing her. "Miss Well, I must admit, I have never seen a case quite like this. Do you truly believe you can defend yourself?" Lily didn't blink. "Your Honor, I don't just believe. I know I can." The sheer confidence in her voice made the entire courtroom still. Hensley, the prosecutor, scoffed as he stood. "Judge York, I believe we are wasting valuable time. The defendant is simply turning this courtroom into her personal stage." Lily remained unfazed by his condescension. She reached for a thick stack of documents and stepped toward the judge's bench. "I would like to present some evidence that the prosecution has conveniently overlooked." York raised an eyebrow, motioning for her to continue. Lily opened the file. "First, Exhibit B, the surveillance footage that they claim incriminates me, shows clear signs of tampering. There is no valid chain of custody, which makes it inadmissible in court." York quickly flipped through the documents, his face darkening with each passing page. "Mr. Hensley, is she correct?" Hensley's jaw tightened as he struggled to maintain composure. "Your Honor, the video still clearly shows." "No timestamp, no verifiable source. Are you seriously trying to convict me with an unverified piece of evidence?" Lily interjected, her tone sharp and unwavering. The courtroom fell into an eerie silence. Hensley clenched his fists, but he couldn't argue back. Lily continued, her voice steady. "Furthermore, Exhibit D, the so-called confession, was signed without legal representation present. Under federal law, this is a violation of due process and cannot be used against me." York sighed, setting the documents down. "Does the prosecution have any justification?" Hensley opened his mouth, then closed it. There was no saving this case. Lily stood tall, her gaze unwavering. "Your Honor, the justice system exists to uphold truth, not to punish the powerless. This case was built on false assumptions and bias, not on facts." A murmur spread through the courtroom, some nodding in agreement. York studied Lily for a long moment before finally nodding. "Miss Well, I agree. This case lacks legally admissible evidence. I hereby dismiss all charges." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, disbelief. But Lily neither smiled nor gloated. She simply nodded, gathered her files, and turned to leave. She hadn't just won. She had changed the way everyone in that room saw her. And perhaps she had changed the world beyond those walls as well. The courtroom held its breath. Lily Well's fight for justice. The air was thick with tension, as if it could be sliced with a knife. Lily Well stood firm, young yet unwavering, facing the skeptical gazes of Judge York and Prosecutor Hensley. She was not just any defendant, and soon they would realize that. York crossed his arms, his tone cold and dismissive. "Miss Well, do you fully comprehend the gravity of your situation? You are defending yourself in a case that could determine your entire future." Lily's lips curled into a subtle, fearless smile. "Your Honor, I understand perfectly, and I also know that this case is built on inadmissible evidence." Hensley shot up from his seat, eyes sharp as daggers. "Absurd! We have more than enough evidence to convict her. The defendant was found at the scene of the crime. We have surveillance footage proving it." Lily calmly stepped forward, opening the thick file in front of her. "The evidence you're referring to, I have reviewed it thoroughly, and it has signs of tampering. I had this footage analyzed by a forensic expert, and here are the results." She placed a forensic report on the judge's bench, each page landing like a heavy blow to the prosecution's case. York skimmed through the documents, his sharp gaze scanning every detail. "You're saying this footage lacks a verifiable chain of custody?" "Precisely, Your Honor. It has been edited and contains missing timestamps. This is a direct violation of evidentiary integrity." York glanced toward Hensley, whose confidence visibly wavered. "Mr. Hensley, do you have a response?" Hensley flipped through his papers, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Your Honor, the video still clearly places her at the scene." Lily cut in, her voice sharp and unwavering. "Number." "It only shows someone who looks like me, but according to federal law, photographic and video evidence must be unaltered and indisputable. This footage fails to meet that standard." York nodded slowly, setting the documents down. "This raises serious concerns about the validity of the evidence." The prosecution fell silent. Lily wasn't done yet. Furthermore, the so-called confession they presented was obtained under coercion, without legal representation. This is a direct violation of my constitutional rights. As such, it is inadmissible in court. There was nothing anyone in the courtroom could say to dispute the truth. No one could deny the strength of her argument. York exhaled deeply, clasping his hands together. Given the evidence violations and procedural misconduct, I have no choice but to dismiss this case. Miss Well, you are free to go. A stunned silence filled the courtroom before whispers erupted throughout the crowd. Lily stood tall, her chin lifted with quiet triumph. She hadn't just proven her innocence, she had proven that justice must stand on truth. And today, she was the one who upheld that truth. The courtroom fell silent as Lily Well took the stand. As Lily Well stepped forward to face Prosecutor Hensley, the air in the courtroom grew thick with tension. Whispers rippled through the audience, some filled with curiosity, others with skepticism. A 17-year-old girl standing alone against the justice system itself was unheard of. Judge York rapped his gavel, his piercing gaze fixed on Lily. Miss Well, you are aware that you are representing yourself, correct? Lily nodded, her voice steady and unwavering. Yes, Your Honor, and I am here to prove that this case has no legal foundation. Hensley chuckled softly, rising from his seat, his expensive suit catching the light. Miss Well, I believe you are underestimating the evidence against you. The surveillance footage clearly places you at the crime scene. Lily took a step forward, resting her hand on a thick stack of documents on the table. Then perhaps you can explain why the timestamp on the footage does not match the official records from law enforcement, and why this so-called evidence was withheld for an unusual amount of time before being submitted? A wave of murmurs spread across the courtroom. York shot a sharp glance at Hensley, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Mr. Hensley, does she have a point? Hensley blinked, regaining his composure quickly. Your Honor, that is merely a coincidence. No, Lily cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. This is evidence of tampering. York's grip tightened on his gavel. Silence stretched in the room before he finally spoke. Do you have any supporting evidence, Miss Well? A small smile played at Lily's lips. I have a forensic report from an expert analyst proving that the video was altered. She placed the document firmly on the judge's bench. York picked it up, flipping through the pages rapidly. The room held its breath as he absorbed the contents. Finally, he set the papers down, turning his full attention to Hensley. Prosecutor, do you have a response? Hensley's jaw tightened, his fingers clutching his case files. Every eye in the courtroom was locked onto him, waiting for a valid defense, but he had none. Lily stood tall, her voice unshaken. In that case, Your Honor, I formally request that this case be dismissed due to lack of admissible evidence. York exhaled deeply, then brought his gavel down. Request granted. Case dismissed. The courtroom erupted into hushed gasps and murmurs, some relieved, others stunned. Lily Well had not only won, she had toppled an entire case that once seemed impossible to defeat. Gathering her documents, she walked out of the courtroom with unwavering poise. Today, she had done more than just defend herself. She had proven that justice has no age and that truth will always prevail. Lily Well, the girl who redefined justice. Lily Well stood firm behind the defense table, her sharp gaze scanning the courtroom. She had imagined this moment countless times, but reality felt even more intense. Across from her, Prosecutor Hensley paced with a smirk of arrogance, his voice dripping with condescension. Your Honor, this is not a high school debate club. We are trying a serious case here, and the defendant, or should I say, the suspect, is using cheap tactics to evade responsibility. A few chuckles rippled through the courtroom. Hensley turned back, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. But Lily remained unshaken. Mr. Hensley, you're absolutely right. This is not a debate. She paused, her voice steady but razor-sharp. This is a courtroom where facts and evidence, not ridicule, determine the truth. A heavy silence settled over the room. Judge York raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the young girl's unwavering confidence. Miss Well, what exactly are you suggesting? With calm precision, Lily placed a thick file onto the judge's desk. I have in my possession a forensic analysis proving that the surveillance footage used by the prosecution as evidence has been tampered with. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Hensley stiffened, but quickly composed himself. You can claim whatever you want, Miss Well, but who can verify the credibility of this report? A knowing smile curled on Lily's lips. Your Honor, with your permission, I would like to call a witness, an independent forensic expert, to testify regarding this report. York nodded. Immediately, a sharply dressed man stepped into the courtroom, carrying a thick folder. He approached the witness stand, took an oath, and met the prosecutor's gaze without hesitation. The surveillance footage presented by the prosecution shows clear signs of manipulation. We detected frame alterations, and the timestamp on the footage does not align with other security logs from the same area. Hensley's eyes widened. The murmurs in the room intensified. Judge York flipped through the forensic report, his expression growing serious. Mr. Hensley, do you have an explanation for this? Hensley clenched his jaw, but no words came out. Lily straightened her posture, her voice carrying both strength and certainty. Your Honor, the sole piece of evidence against me has been invalidated. I formally request that this case be dismissed immediately. York set the report down, then brought down his gavel with force. Motion granted, case dismissed. Miss Well, you are free to go. The courtroom erupted in a wave of gasps and hushed conversations. Lily exhaled slowly, not in surprise, but in satisfaction. She had known from the beginning. The truth is the most powerful weapon, and today she had wielded it with precision. Lily Well, the girl who changed the game. The tension in the courtroom was so thick that even the slightest noise could make someone flinch. Lily Well stood at the defense table, her sharp gaze scanning every face in the room. She knew that today wasn't just a trial, it was a battle to prove the truth. Judge York sat back in his chair, arms crossed, watching her with a cold expression. Miss Well, you have spent this entire trial challenging the prosecution's evidence, but remember, this is not an academic debate. Do you have any real proof of your innocence? Prosecutor Hensley smirked, folding his arms. We've presented substantial evidence. She's just stalling, Your Honor. Lily didn't waver. Slowly, she placed a thick file onto the judge's desk. Your Honor, I submit new evidence. A forensic analysis of the surveillance video that the prosecution used to accuse me. York raised an eyebrow. Proceed. She pushed the file toward the bailiff, who quickly delivered it to the judge. My forensic expert has analyzed the footage and found that the timestamps have been altered. If the court allows, I would like to call a witness to verify these findings. York gave a slight nod. The courtroom doors swung open and a sharply dressed man stepped inside, holding a report. He approached the witness stand, took the oath, and faced the judge. I examined the surveillance footage and discovered that several frames had been modified. Additionally, the timestamp on the video does not match the actual security records from the area. The courtroom erupted into hushed murmurs. Hensley's face paled. Your Honor, York raised a hand to silence him. He studied the report with a darkened expression. Mr. Hensley, it appears that your most crucial piece of evidence has been tampered with. Lily's voice remained steady. Your Honor, falsified evidence cannot be accepted in court. I formally request an immediate dismissal of this case. A moment of tense silence filled the courtroom. Then, York picked up his gavel and struck it down firmly. Motion granted. This case is dismissed. Miss Well, you are free to go." A sharp gasp escaped from Hensley, but there was nothing he could do. Lily stood tall, nodding slightly. She wasn't arrogant, she wasn't smug, just calm and resolute. Today, she didn't just win a trial, she changed the game. The lesson behind Lily Wells' story. Lily Wells' case is more than just a legal victory. It's a powerful lesson in perseverance, intellect, and courage in the face of injustice. When everything seemed predetermined, when those in power believed they could manipulate the truth, Lily proved that the truth cannot be hidden forever. She didn't win through anger or outbursts. She won through meticulous preparation, unwavering confidence, and a deep understanding of the law. This story reminds us that authority does not always mean righteousness, and sometimes a single determined individual can challenge an entire system. More importantly, it teaches us that justice is not always handed out easily. It must be fought for, protected, and upheld by those brave enough to stand for what is right. Thank you for watching. If you found this video interesting or enjoyable, please show your support by giving it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and reach more amazing viewers like you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our future uploads. Your support means the world to us and keeps us motivated to create even better content for you.